Hi everyone, I'm back again with another case review today, and today what we have here is the Kouche Chancellor Z13. I bought this case in June of 2021, and basically it just arrived last month, February 2021. So it's been a pretty long time, and I was looking forward quite a bit to it. So let's take a closer look. So first impressions, right? The case has a similar component layout to the Encase M1 and the Cooler Master NR200P. Where it differentiates though is this unibody outer shell that provides for a very pretty aesthetic, with this single piece metal that goes all around the case and no side panels. It is only slightly larger than my Akla A4 Pro, but houses a lot more components. We're talking about 6 cooling fans in total and up to 4 2.5-inch hard disks. There's no need for a PCIe riser cable as well, as the GPU mounts straight on the motherboard. More fans also equate to better airflow and slightly better thermal performance, especially with the 2 additional slim 120mm fans that I now have under my GPU, assisting with providing cool air to the GPU. Hot air taken in through the radiators are also better exhausted via the additional 120mm and 90mm system fans. Taking a closer look at the case, a unibody outer shell means that there are no lines along the sides, which gives a very pretty look overall. The front panel array provides for one USB-C port, one USB-A port, and a camouflaged power button. And taking a closer look at the build process, first off is this very nice toolkit that Kouche provides with the case. Not only are all the screws nicely sorted to their relevant pockets and labeled, it also comes with a very useful screwdriver and all the heads you need for the different screws this case uses. To open the case, you need to pop off the top panel first. This is done via a button at the back of the case, but really it is just a tiny rod and a metal bracket that pushes the panel up. Then you can lift it off. Once the top panel is off, remove the front panel array first, as it does block the unibody shell from being removed. Then basically lift the shell off the main frame, Mac Pro style. Once open, the side panel is revealed. It comes in 2 available options, either a water-cooled that comes with the radiator mounts or an air-cooled version that doesn't have those. But it does give a bit more room for a larger tower cooler. You're still limited to a CPU cooler height of 138mm though, which includes coolers such as the Cooler Master Hyper H412R and Noctuous C14S. Assembly is pretty straightforward. I'm basically using back all my main PC components, my Gigabyte B550i ITX motherboard, my AMD Ryzen 5900X, EKWB 240mm AIO, Corsair SF750 power supply, and my EVGA RTX 3080 Xe3 Ultra. And what I'm adding on today is my Seagate 2.5-inch 5TB hard drive. Note that I'm using a high capacity drive that's much thicker than a regular 2.5-inch. If you were using conventional sized ones, you could probably fit up to 4 drives, 2 at the top and another 2 at the front. With the outer shell and the side bracket off, the very exposed skeleton frame gives you plenty of room to work with when mounting the motherboard, power supply, and handling the cables. For the GPU, you can fit a 3-slot card here for all those folks out there with a 3090. If you do have a slimmer card like mine though, you can also put in 2 slim fans to help with the intake. Kouche actually provides a little standoff to help with the GPU sag that added to the bottom of my GPU. I'm using all ID cooling fans this round also to try those out. They are significantly cheaper. The total of 6 fans here cost me about the same, maybe even less than the 2 Noctua fans I was using previously. The Z13 supports 2 standard 25mm thick fans for the 240mm AIO, but I opted for slim fans here for an easier build. It was a lot easier to close up the side panel with the slim fans, especially when your AIO tubings are a little bit thicker like the ones I have on my EKWB. So now that I've actually built a PC into this case, what's the good and what's the bad, right? So for the top panel, the button isn't so much of a button, but just a tiny metal rod that pushes against the metal bracket that pops the top panel up. There's nothing that actually holds the top panel down. It simply holds itself in place by being a perfect tight fit. It also means that it takes quite a bit of effort to pry the top panels off with your fingers, because the button definitely doesn't pop it clean off. It's also not secured to the case. You have to actually remove this button in order to remove the unibody shell. So if you lose this thing, you probably have to go find some other object to help you push the top panel open. To remove the unibody shell, you also need to release the front panel power button and USB ports array. Removing isn't really a big deal, it's just 2 screws, right? But putting it back on always takes me many tries just to get the ports to align perfectly with the top panel. Sliding the unibody shell on and off is really cumbersome and totally not elegant at all. The Mac Pro does a really spectacular job, but over here, it's really noisy. If I was building this in the quiet place, I would probably have been killed by now. In order to open the case, you will need to disconnect all the cables every single time. There is no way to remove the unibody shell without disconnecting all cables. There is no way to quickly pop off the side panel to check for any issues inside the case while the computer is running. In terms of the good, this case really is very stunning. With the Aklak A4 Pro I was using previously, there would always be this feeling of slight imperfection. For example, some of the gaps and slots that are running along the side of the case not being perfectly aligned, etc. But with this unibody shell, you really don't see this at all, as all around the case is just one single piece of metal, and I really do think that it looks very good. For basically what is just 1 finger's width thicker in total size, I can fit up to 6 fans and 4 2.5-inch hard disks. And had I gone with air cooling, I could even fit in 2 3.5-inch hard disks. That's a lot more options for basically a very negligible increase in size compared to my old previous sandwich style case. Without the need for a PCIe riser cable also means one less point of failure. I was using a PCIe 3.0 riser cable previously, which meant that I always had to ensure my BIOS was set to PCIe 3 before building the PC with the riser cable. Otherwise, I would always have issues booting. Of course, this could also be resolved with a PCIe 4.0 riser cable, but when I first built into the Aklak case, the 4.0 cables weren't as readily available. Without the sandwich layout, I won't even have to think about that anymore. With a sandwich layout style case, your options for air cooling are extremely limited. Pretty much your only decent option is something like the Noctua L12S. But this also limits your CPU selection. With the Z13, even if you decide to stick to air cooling, you could easily put in larger coolers such as the Hyper H412R from Cooler Master. So, would I recommend this case? I do think that the Koosh Z13 is a very worthy competitor to the Cooler Master NR200P and the Ncase M1. A lot of the cases in the market these days are pretty much carbon copies of each other. You get your sandwich layout style cases, or you get your pretty much standard layout style cases. There aren't a lot of options, and I think the Koosh Z13 tried to innovate and tried to do something a little bit different. And sure, there were some minor issues that I had to deal with, but overall, I do like this unibody design, and I really like the pretty look that it gives. Unfortunately, it is going to be really difficult for you to purchase this case because it is currently listed as discontinued on the Koosh website. On the SFF network forums, the seller did mention that this is due to basically issues that he faced in the manufacturing process, and until he solves those issues, he will likely not do a second batch of this case. I really hope he manages to solve those issues though, and maybe even improve the design on this a little bit so that more of you can actually enjoy this very pretty case. That's all for today. If you liked today's video, do hit the like and subscribe button as it would really help out a lot. If you're shopping for other ITX cases, do check out my previous reviews of the Aklak A4 V2 ITX as well as the A4 Pro. Those are really good case options if you're looking for sandwich layout style cases. If there are any other interesting ITX cases you come across in the market, do share a link in the comments as I would love to check out those as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.